Now look, y'all, feel me? This is a very special video. This is like, I don't know, this is the first time I'm doing something like this, I guess you could say. So, you feel me? Basically, I know, like, during this journey, people, we all, we try to save as many people as we can, but we can't save everybody. Maybe that person won't resonate with you on a type of level, or won't resonate with the frequency you putting out. They may need to hear it from somebody that's teaching it a different way. You feel what I'm saying? So I'm gonna just try to incorporate variety, a different perspective. It's the same thing we saying, but he's saying it a different way. Obviously, because he's a different person. Everybody, awaken and experience this type of growth and that period of introspection differently. So basically, he gonna be. This is Eckhart Tolle. I don't know how to say his last name, but this is an interview he did with Nina Rhodes, 1998. Probably don't know who this man is, but I actually use a lot of his quotes on my captions for my pictures and stuff like that. You feel me? But let's just get right into it. I'm gonna be breaking down what he's saying for y'all, just so if anybody not understanding what he's meaning, I'm just going to emphasize it. So you go ahead.
Or transformation. I cannot live with myself any longer, and suddenly I thought, what does this mean? Who is the I, and who is the self that I cannot live with? There was a kind of separation that occurred at that moment. I separated myself, my sense of identity separated from the unhappy, depressed, and anxious person, and suddenly there was me here observing that unhappy self. So there was a disidentification. And
basically what he's saying is he zoomed out. Remember how I told you it's like a focal lens. If you live in the first person and you constantly running from your demons, but you feeling all of the sensations from the demons every time you try to do those forms of escapism, party, drink, whatever the case, and then you slow down. Once you start running from them, it's going to always be a period where you got to take a rest and slow down. They always catch up with you. You feel all of those sensations back again when you sober up, when you off the bottle. You feel me? Like, basically, all that he's saying is he zoomed out. He had to sit still and zoom out. He actually asked a question to himself, zoomed out, so he could look at his self in a third eye perspective.
I thought, how is that possible? I can now observe the unhappiness as if it were in me, but not essentially me. So that was, I described that in a little bit more detail in the book. When I woke up the next morning, I was in a state of very deep peace, and that lasted for several months, and it never really left me, but that deeply blissful state lasted for several months. And I didn't know what had happened to me. How is it possible that from one day being a very anxious person, I could suddenly become transformed into a deeply peaceful person? And it was only years later that I understood what actually had happened to me at that time. So in a way,
what was it?
It's a realization that the suffering me is ultimately a fiction of the mind. I had created a mental fiction that I believed in and identified with. You could call it the ego. And through the pressure of suffering, I separated from that fiction.
See what I mean, bro? I say the same thing time and time again. Like, it don't matter how many different ways we hear it. It just resonates so much on a spiritual level when we just hear it back to ourselves. Like, he basically on some Bruce Lee shit. I don't know if y'all ever heard that quote, but in Bruce Lee quote, he said to be scared of dying, to be fear. Some shit he said, some shit like to be fearful of dying. No, to be. I forgot what the fuck this nigga said exactly. I'm trying to quote him verbatim, but to paraphrase, he basically was like, you can't be scared of dying, you have to be liberated from it. So instead of learning the art to live, we gotta learn the art of dying. That's kind of what he did. He basically just killed his ego by separating himself from it. Understanding that. Remember I said connections and attachments, right? It's all connected. You can have an attachment to your emotions. You can have an attachment to the anxiety. People nowadays, listen, I'm not a doctor. Disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. But let me get back into it. So people they identify with the anxiety. They make that their personality. And they have it, they hide in it. They use it as an excuse. They say, oh, I have anxiety, so you know such and such. Oh, I have anxiety, so you know such and such. Like, they literally attach to the fact that they have anxiety. And then these medical professionals, we will convince them that it's permanent. Or that they've been going long-term, have this shit for like a long period of time so they can keep prescribing them depression meds and all this other fuck shit. When you really don't need that. You really don't need that. You just need a quiet place to become sound, bro. That's one of the realest shits I ever said in my life. You need a quiet place to become sound. It's so evident. Listen to what he said. He didn't, in that moment, all he did was zoom out, take a third eye perspective, and just completely zoom out from the fact of all of those emotions he was feeling. And realize that those emotions that he was attached to is not him. So he's saying the suffering in him is not him. It's not truly him. Because at the end of the day, you are the soul in the body. You're not the body. And you living in first person mode. So you feeling all of this shit so deeply. But you take everything so personal. It's not really personal when you really think about it. You gotta learn to objectify your life. You gotta learn to hold an objective perspective. Like, that's just the best way I could summarize it for y'all. But, it's not nothing I never said before, but hearing it from him and me emphasizing it, maybe it will click different for some people that just not getting it.
And when I separated from that fiction, it collapsed as if a plug had been pulled out of an inflatable toy, because it ultimately wasn't real. I realized then that the suffering self wasn't ultimately real, it was a fiction. And in a way, that's also the basis of the book. And when I later started to work with people, very often people came to me who were in some kind of suffering, some form of pain. And what I'm trying to convey and teach is that it is possible to live free of suffering, to go beyond suffering.
Well, what the expression that I'm really fond of is, instead of saying I am upset, because the I am is self,
Yes.
saying I'm having an upset.
Yes.
Or I am angry. I'm experiencing anger. Of course, you wouldn't say that, but I'm experiencing.
See, that's the key right there. It's how you wording it. It's how you wording it. It's how you identifying what's I. She's saying I'm angry, right? So she's identifying in first person in that moment. What does she mean when she say I? She talking about her. She talking about the fact that she angry. But rather than the fact, I see how she reworded it and said, I'm experiencing anger, rather than I am angry. Because you understand that the emotion is not you. You are feeling and experiencing emotion. You are the carrier and receiver of the emotion. Where the emotion coming from? If it's not you, where the emotion coming from? It was outside stimulus that stimulated that emotion inside of you, but that is not you exactly. I'm gonna get back to it. Let that sink in. Like, that's some real. I probably gonna fly over your head. You might have to rewind it, but let that sink in.
Experiencing anger, but to say I am upset or I am sick,
Yes.
is really sort of embedding that
That's
into
right.
yourself, where you say, I'm having an upset. Well, if you have something, you can give it away.
See how she flipped that? You see how she flipped that? Ironically, right? It's like people say I'm sick. Nah, you're not sick. You're not sick, because first of all, you're not the body. So what do you mean I? Your body is sick because all of that bullshit you eating, for me. But let me not get on my shit.
That's right. So it's already progress if from saying I am angry or I am upset, you say there is anger in me or there is upset in me. You've already separated your essential identity from the emotion.
Listen to what he's saying. My fault. I'm posing it too much. I'm tripping. My fault. But all this is straight Jews for like a whole minute straight. He been talking. Her and him, straight Jews. The knees drop in a couple of sentences. There's so much shit in between those lines that niggas might not be picking up. That's why I'm posing it. But bro, listen to what he's saying. Instead of saying I'm angry, I'm sad. There is sadness in me. There is anger in me. And then when you begin to ask your question, right? Because, like I said, it's one of my best quotes again. The right answer is a couple steps away from the right question. How, when you phrase questions to yourself, you got a key to who you are addressing, because the anger is not you. So you can't say, why am I angry? You gotta ask, why is there anger in me? Why am I experiencing anger? What caused this? From asking yourself those questions, just meditating on it, or just, thinking on it, introspective, you come to the right answer. It's inevitably right that close to the same question you just asked. You just start to ponder upon it, and then the answer just appears somewhere around the question that you asked.
Emotional state. So you are no longer reinforcing the emotional state through your identification. So that's already, that's the beginning of inner transformation, is that separation from the passing mental or emotional state.
Well, that's such a wonderful time in life when suddenly you realize that you don't have to be the victim of your thoughts.
Yes.
That you can shut those off just through the power of being in the now and understanding what you have written.
What the fuck do I keep telling y'all? Whoa, you feel me? Let me not say it like that, like I go crazy. But I swear I say the same thing all the time. I keep telling people, especially people in my life that I know personally that have anxiety. I literally say it's 99% proven to erase most of your anxiety, because that's what it is, right? What if situations? What if I do this and that happened? What if that happened and that happened to me? What if it's all these what ifs, right? That's what anxiety is, all of these what ifs. I'm not saying that's all of it, but that's a big part of anxiety. The what if situation, the constant contemplation and anxiousness that's coming from situations that's not real. None of that shit is real. The only thing you have that's real is in the present. Get out of a body mindset. I'm pointing at her head because you can't see me tapping my head. I'm tapping my head with 2 fingers right now because this shit is getting me. It's like, and it's out of a place, don't mistake this for anger. It's out of a place of, caring, because I actually care about y'all and I want y'all to be good. So I'm getting passionate about it because I really want y'all to be at a level where I can say, I'll put that behind me. I don't have anxiety no more, because it's not stuck with you. You do not have anxiety long term. You're not permitted to you don't have to take no pills. You don't have to do none of that. And watch, this video might get banned just for me saying you don't have to take pills. Disclaimer, again, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a therapist. I'm not none of that. I'm just a person with an opinion who's entitled to the freedom of speech that I was gifted, and that's it. Alright, so feel me? Like I said, bro, being in the moment is going to erase 99.9% of your anxiety and a bunch of other symptoms that you may experience from you thinking in futuristic situations or over contemplating situations, and just living in the past too. Like, all of that should get cured by just appreciating the moment. In your life, you overall improve your life quality by, like, I don't know, I can't give you a percentage on that, bro, but you overall improving your life quality, because every moment that go by is going to feel like you truly appreciated and was present in that moment. So you don't need memories to hold on to because you wasn't in the moment to cherish them when they was there. So now you got to cherish them through photos. You got to cherish them through memories that you have with people that's no longer here, because you was truly present in that moment. You felt alive and you felt connected to them in that moment, instead of waiting to feel connected when you looking at it in the present to the past. You feel me? We're looking at it for the future. You feel me? From things that may not happen, and then you get destroyed when you lose connections with people or attachments to people. It's not. Just appreciate every moment you got with yourself on this earth. Appreciate every moment you got with others that may no longer be in your life, because we don't know how long people gonna be in our life. You feel me? That's just some real shit. We don't even know how long we gonna be here. It might not even be them that be gone. It might be us, or we might just fall out with them, and they just was there to teach us a lesson. But we appreciated them in a moment, and we got our lessons we needed to get. People still never learn from people that left their life years ago. They have to wait 2 years after to learn a lesson from a person. Why? Because they didn't appreciate the person in the moment, or they didn't appreciate the moment with the person. I want that flower you had. Let's get it.
Written in this book. Now, the word enlightenment has been tossed about in so many different expressions, meanings, philosophies. Could you explain to us what the book embraces with the power of now, a guide to spiritual enlightenment? What is enlightenment?
Well, as you say, the word has been used a lot of times, and people attribute different meanings to it. But the word enlightenment essentially comes from the East, originally from Buddhism. It points to a radical psychological transformation but it's not confined to the East. It also exists in other ancient religions. The term salvation in Christianity, I believe, is really another form of the Buddhist enlightenment, or the term liberation in Hinduism is really just another way of pointing to the same thing. So they all point to the possibility of a radical inner transformation. And before we look at that, we need to realize that urgent need in the human psyche, the personal psyche and the collective psyche, for a radical psychological transformation. All the ancient religions recognize that there is something wrong with human beings. Despite the ingenuity of the human mind, there seems to be some essential flaw which causes humans to go into suffering, to create suffering and pain for themselves and for others. And the ancient religions have given different names to that essential flaw. So Buddhism, for example, calls it, straightforward calls it suffering. One of the characteristics of human existence, Buddhism says, is suffering. Hinduism says humans are in a state of delusion. There's the veil of Maya. We do not perceive things clearly. We see them as through a veil. So we are deluded. Christianity says there is an original state of sin that humans are in. So if you look at the deeper structure underlying all those terms, what it's really saying is...
Spirituality says you just existing in your root chakra, you in a low vibrational state of being because you don't know who you are and you have not remembered who you are and the power that you hold over yourself. Let's go.
There's something not right, something seems to have gone wrong. But all the religions also say there is a path, there is a way of reversing this. So there's the bad news, which all religions agree on, and there's the good news, which also all religions agree on.
And do they agree in the process that it would take to create this so-called enlightenment? Because we do live, and I know this just in everyday life, people live in a state of victimhood.
Yes, essentially, yes, the process is the same. Sometimes the names and the terminology differs, but the essential process is the same. And really what it starts with is to disidentify from the thinking mind. Now, this for some people may be a new thing.
Go watch my video called The Art of Calcination. It's one of the first steps, if not the first step, of alchemy, divine alchemy. We talk about spiritual alchemy here, not actually turning because there's two aspects to alchemy for people who don't know. I don't know if you know, from people that have been with me, they probably seen the video already. And there's two aspects to alchemy. You got alchemy that's physical, like philosopher's stone type ish. You know, converting one material into another material, or just the transformation and transmutation of converting one material into another material, gold into metal, silver into gold. You feel what I'm saying? Shit like that. Then you got another aspect where they take that same aspect, but it's metaphorically now. It's a lot of symbolism and it's spiritual. Let's say you take a person point A and you transform this point A person to a new version of themselves, which you can call the enlightened person.
Because most people are totally identified with their thought processes. So they are kind of trapped in their mind, and most people never or almost never experience a gap in the stream of mind. So the mind is like a river that pulls you along, and another way of describing it is to say that it's almost as if somebody had built a noise machine into your head. It would be a fiendish thing to do. Imagine some demon builds a noise machine into your head and it doesn't have a switch off button.
Oh, it's so true. It's that constant inner dialogue that you feel that, can I quiet my mind? And the native cultures have a saying that it's a trickster, which is the trickster keeps trying to trick you into these negative thinking patterns.
And my personal opinion and perspective on this matter, I'm not going to say how difficult or easy it is, because that's just a matter of perspective as well, but in my personal perspective, just people say how can I quiet my mind? I feel like that's the wrong approach at first. I feel like what you first should be, the approach you should take first is, how can I find a quiet place in my mind? If you imagine a circle, right? You found a quiet place, you put it right here. Don't mind her face right now. I'm just drawing a circle. I'm envisioning it. You draw a circle. This is you in the middle of the circle. This is the quiet place. The circle is the quiet place. You found it. You are now in the center of the quiet space. From there, you can expand that, and it's essentially a domain expansion or some. I don't know if y'all seen the anime Jujutsu Kaisen, but it's really like, so you created this barrier of quiet, and you expand that by continuously visiting that place and just making it stronger. So now you have a strong quiet place in your mind, and that's gonna be the foundation for which you rebuild your whole mind, your whole thing. You can rebuild. You literally have control and sovereignty over your mind. That's why people say, you see a lot of people that do therapy and spiritual people, they say people let their mind control them, and you need to be controlling your mind. That's really true. That's really true. You have the power to reconstruct your whole mind. Even on a cellular level, your mind reconstructs itself already. So you have the power to do that on a metaphysical level. You can literally reconstruct your mind, how you think, how you perceive things. Like, I could go on and on about this topic. For me, the mind is infinite, but you have the power to reconstruct that from the beginning, the center point, which is you.
And there are ways to quiet the mind and be still. And people feel, I think, even if there's a lull in the conversation, people feel they must fill it immediately because the thoughts are going so quickly.
That's right. That's right. So there is a way, and in a way, the first step is.
I feel like that's also another symptom of escapism. You're not trying to have it quiet because you know that the voice is going to start spurring if you're not involved in something. Like, you're not getting no mental stimulation in the moment. So you know your voice is going to get to start fluttering and your mind get to start boggling because the conversation is dying out. Like, that's a sign you need healing. If you can't exist in a quiet place without making noise, that's because it's not quiet inside. It's noisy inside. You need that quiet place inside. So that way, you feel me? It's a quote, another quote I say, yo, I swear I be dropping jewels, bro. Yo, find a quiet place to become sound, bro, for real. You don't need noise when it's quiet inside. You don't. Truth.
Stand back inside yourself, take one step back and observe what the mind does. So you become the observer of your mind. That's a very essential step. And then you will find that there are certain patterns that occur again and again, thought patterns, often negative ones. They're like old gramophone records that perhaps have been playing in your mind for years. So you take a step back and say, oh, there's my mind, I can observe the thoughts that go through my mind. So your sense of identity shifts from being the thought to being the observer of your thoughts.
That's also that's also the way I kill intrusive thoughts. All of this go hand in hand, it's all connected. But I didn't realize it, but this is also a way you could kill intrusive thoughts immediately, just by not identifying with the thoughts that's coming. Because people thoughts, there's people out here that's really diagnosed with, that's considered, you know, schizophrenic or crazy or whatever the case, because the thoughts that have been in their mind are so intrusive and so loud now in volume, because it's left unchecked, that those voices are now, they feel like they identify with those voices. They don't lost their voice in their mind altogether. That's that little center point of them inside of their mind with the circle around it. They don't lost their barrier. They didn't lost they self into the void. They don't know where they self even begin, where it ends. It's just a loud, like, claw mark around their head of some other influence intruding on their thoughts. So they just lost their voice altogether inside of their head. So they don't know how to think for themselves no more. In a metaphorical term. Not like they stupid, but you feel what I'm saying.
It's sometimes called the witness. So you are witnessing all the thoughts that go through your mind. And that's a very essential shift in identity. In a way you withdraw more deeply into yourself from where you observe the flow of mind, the flow of thinking.
Now, in the flow of mind, and witnessing your thoughts, is this without judgment, without editing it, saying, well, I don't want to think that,
Yes.
or whatever. So it's then without judgment and without editing what the thought flow is.
That's a very good point, because the moment you judge what you're observing, that's the mind again.
Yes.
So it's only when you're free of judgment and you're almost like a mirror that just shows you what the mind is doing. You're not taking any position and say, I like that or I don't like that. You allow the thoughts to be. But if you allow the thoughts to be, they lose their energy because you're no longer feeding them energy through your identification. It's when you're totally identified that all the thoughts actually feed on you, on your life energy.
Yes.
And you then find that a lot of your thinking is actually completely useless.
It's true, especially in the middle of the night when you're
When you
solving
wake
every
up.
single problem in the world in your mind, and you wake up in the morning and certainly it wasn't that bad, and you're not solving it anyway by
Yes.
tragedizing.
And in fact, it was creating problems rather than
Exactly,
solving.
like sleeplessness,
Yeah,
tiredness for the
See?
next day's productivity.
that's
You
right.
see?
So that's the first.
And I also tell a lot of people this when they go to sleep and still feel tired. Because you ain't let your spirit rest. Because look what you doing that night. You thinking about. And it's like, I used to do the same thing. You could go back on my Facebook and see I had plenty of statuses where I said, on quiet nights like these, my mind the loudest. That's me just basically coding to y'all. Like, I wasn't signaling for help, but that's just basically me expressing that, you know, in quiet nights, you know, you just tend to think a lot and just be, your mind just heavy with a lot of stuff. But, you know, me, I always was able to, I didn't get no sleep, so I'm not even saying that I'm able to get sleep, but I was able to at least offload that for when I did go to sleep. I had a good sleep, you feel what I'm saying? But people carry that with them into sleep and still be thinking, dreaming them, and it's like, yo, bro, it's never going to end. You gonna always keep waking up tired, no matter how much sleep you get.
First step. Now the next step is to consciously, occasionally, create little gaps in the stream of mind. That can start with a simple thing like taking one conscious breath. Just taking one conscious breath. What conscious breath means, you're focusing your attention on the breathing. You observe how the air flows into your body and out of your body. Now by doing that, you take attention away from thinking. And because you're now observing the breath directly, it flows in and out. And during that time, which may only be 10 seconds, the mind is still. You've taken consciousness by choice. You've taken consciousness away from the mind and put it onto your breathing. So you've created a little...
The art of meditation, bruh. To put it simply, the art of meditation.
gap in the stream of mind. And in that gap there's the dimension of inner stillness. And that's a wonderfully liberating thing. Suddenly, stillness. And in that stillness, if you go more deeply into it, there's also a very subtle joy. There's even love. There's a presence. It's kind of finding a deeper you, a deeper sense of self than the mind.
You know what's crazy, bro? That some people may overlook. That's why I flashed the camera. You see how she's smiling by just hearing that? Like, she's smiling. Let me rewind that real quick. Look how genuine and bright the smile was when she heard him say that. That shit crazy, bro.
That you find in that stillness. And this is just one example. You take a conscious breath and use moments when the gap occurs naturally. For some people it happens when they go out into nature. You're surrounded by trees in the forest and you're suddenly overwhelmed by the beauty of nature.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, also for that moment, the mind stops and there's stillness.
Like a sunset.
Yes. Or something overwhelmingly beautiful can sometimes create that stillness. And for most people it only lasts for a few seconds, but if you become conscious of it, you can actually prolong it and go into it and feel the stillness inside you. So it can happen through beauty. It can also happen for other people.
Like I said, bro, art is therapy. When I do those third eye therapies, getting that shit off my chest, and I just talk and I become completely immersed in the present moment and what I'm saying, everything just flows. It's like channeling a different dimension, a person, of myself. Everything just flows. But I'm at 30 minutes, you feel me? And this may or may not get taken down based on the advice that I gave, or just because they trying to play with me. My face is blocked already right now, so I'm gonna stop right here. Let me know if y'all want a part 2. Just comment and I got y'all. I got the video right here. If you want to watch the interview for yourself, or you want to hear me break it down, just hear me just comment down part 2. But the interview is right here. They call it Totally, I don't, you feel me? Interview with host Nina Rhodes, 1998. You gonna see him here with a suit on. You seen it there just now. Damn, can she show up? Oh yeah, her right there. You feel me? But where was he at? He was 14. Alright, I'm gonna remember this for next time. I love y'all, feel me? Hopefully this video helps somebody. There's no reason you should still be depressed after this year is over. Like, you could be sad, you could be feeling negative emotions, but to be depressed, we not doing that next year. We not doing that. You cutting that out. Like, that's done. Feel me? So let's start now. If you ain't started already, let's start now. Feel me? But I love y'all. Feel me? It's like so Mike. I'm out. Peace.